Hello, my absolutely brilliant and beautiful astrology soulmates. It's me, Stormy Grace, and welcome to this video where we are going to talk about the upcoming eclipse happening in Virgo. Now, this is actually going to just be playing out for us on Sunday, the 21st. So we are coming up to it very, very quickly. And hopefully, as we are approaching this and you've been watching content online, whether it's astrological or any other content, you've been giving yourself some time to just slow down and look around and evaluate what's actually going on because there's a lot of energy pumping through the world right now. And hopefully, you've had a chance to kind of come back to ground, come back to center, and see where these are playing out in your own life. Because as we do get to Sunday, we're arriving at a really potent eclipse for us for the year. Because the new moon solar eclipse in Virgo is happening at 29 degrees, this is telling us a really important story. And every new moon brings an invitation, right? It's always bringing an invitation. We're going to plant our seeds of intention to begin to build something. But the solar eclipse, especially because the type of solar eclipse this is, it's going to amplify it. So it's almost as if it's not just planting the seeds nicely in our soil, it's like pressing us into changes. It's pressing those seeds into the ground. But the difference is with the eclipse as well, it tends to feel more urgent or more karmic, or like something that we're going to start or shift from is going to be longer lasting. And I think that's definitely the case here. Now, that 29 degrees of Virgo, that is an unmistakable energy of urgency, right? Because it's this feeling. This is a lunation, so it's certainly the feeling or the instinct or the reaction that something, I have to do something. And something has to end, something has to change, something has to shift before I can move forward. And it can kind of have that breathy, worried feel to it as well. And we've been experiencing a bit of that in the pulse that's out in the air right now, right? So, what we can also say is that this isn't like a nudge. This is not a nudge from the judge, right? This is this lunar internal reactionary core push that is saying to us in every way, the old system is done now. The old system is done now. It doesn't work. We have to move on. The other thing I think a lot about at this 29 degrees is how important it is that the shift of momentum that it brings in here, particularly in Virgo, is causing us to have the acknowledgments of the systems in two ways. One, if something that you've been working on, it's previously been built, it's in alignment, it is of service to yourself, your life, your day, your health, the world around you, whatever it is that you are building, if it is of service, it can continue to bring fruit, even if the time right now, maybe even for the last year, it feels like it's been a little, should this stay? Should this go? If it is built to genuinely be of service, it will continue to bear fruit. It will continue to bear fruit. However, if something is not built well, it will bring collapse. This is the story of the eclipse energy because that disintegration of the old patterns, the old relationships, the old circumstances, the old stories, if it's impeding growth, it will need to have its evolution at this time. So, first things first, before we go any further, jumping into our look around for at this lunation, if you do not already have your own natal chart, you want to make sure that you grab that. You can click in my description box down below because you want to see exactly where is 29 degrees in your particular chart, right? Where is this happening? Is that in a particular house? Is it at an angle? Do you have a point? Do you have an asteroid? Do you have a fixed star? Depending on how big astrology gets for you, what is happening there? Because this is where you're going to be able to see your own personal intensity of the eclipse. And this may be where places feel like, oh my God, this is under acceleration. Now, particularly as well, the mutable signs, right? Virgo, Sag, Pisces, and Gemini. You're going to feel this more intensely. It's always like that when we have some kind of an event. The other signs who share a quality are going to feel it pretty intensely. So, if you've got any of those things going in your particular chart, you want to have a look and know how this is going to play out exactly for you. Now, you can click in my description box down below where I've also got a little worksheet for you, a little guide. It's for free so that you can put this lunation into words depending on the house that it's happening in your chart. I don't go by signs because not all of us are using the same housing system. So we can't just go by signs. So I give it to you by house so you can very specifically grab your chart and get the very best of the information. Okay, let's talk about why else this eclipse matters. This eclipse is particular and special and important because it's the only solar eclipse that we are having in the Virgo Pisces axis for 2025. Yes, we had a solar eclipse back in March, but that one was in Aries. That was about something else in a different cycle. So this one is the only solar eclipse that we're having. The rest have been lunar eclipses, which were focused on the endings, the revelations, the culmination points. This one is unique. So this is why I would love for you to just circle this in your calendar, see what's going on, keep note of this, because when we come back to see the patterning of this, you're going to want to know this was a particular time, even if it feels quiet right now, right? Because this is where you're planting the seeds of intention, but they have to be done in a very Virgo way. They're around our health, around our routines, our daily responsibilities, and the way that we serve others, right? Astrologically speaking, although the eclipse is it's deeply charged, we have to also look at who else is coming to the table to create conversation. And we see that this lunation, as you can see on the screen here, is also in opposition to Saturn, who's now back in Pisces in retrograde, and Neptune, who's in Aries here as well. So this immediately puts us into a conversation of challenging where we step into responsibility and where we surrender to a vision that is trying to make its way through, but with some kind of discernment, right? Right away, we walk square into that conversation, but it's also pointing us back to, as these planets are in retrograde, it's pointing us back to something that we have been working on for quite some time. It's ready to have its shift, right? It's like unfinished business. Was it a project you were working on, something you've been in confusion about, you've been doubting yourself on? Is there a contract that you've been working on, health matters, financial matters that have not been revisited or they haven't been finished? Now, these two energies are working to bring a finishing, right? A culmination to it. We have to tackle the unfinished business. Now, the other thing that I do like about this is that I think that the Neptune in Aries for us helps dissolve these illusions we've had around our responsibility in handling whatever needs to be handled here. What task did I need to take on, or how was I taking that task on, right? If it's I need to pay down my debt, have I been taking it on by trying to force money to come to me, or I've been beating myself up with that bat, or staying in a conversation that's stressing my nervous system out? Whereas this Neptune in Aries is going to ask us to take a higher vision of that. Even if it feels foggy, we're going to bring more compassion into the conversation. We're going to believe that you can have a different life, right? These kinds of things are going to be a part of the story, very much so. Now, those are not the only players that are in the game. We also see that Uranus in Taurus and Pluto in Aquarius are in really nice harmony, actually, with this particular lunation. And this gives us the tools for innovation and transformation. So it's not just that it's intensely happening, but it has helpers as well. And if you can see this very small aspect, I'm going to break them all down, but if you can see this very small aspect of Mars in Libra in this sextile with this lunation as well, it's this nice to me reminder, but I have Mars in Libra, so I always think about this. It's this nice reminder to me that relationships and having the courage to change in the relationships that we're in is really what the deal is, right? Because life is made up of relationships. It's all part of the story, whether you've done really well, whether it's been a challenge, whether you're growing, whatever, it's all a part of the story. But the biggest thing that we want to be considering in all of this is, what is the Virgo story? And the Virgo story for every single one of us comes down to what we are building, how we are living, comes down to we are either in service or we are in servitude, right? Because Virgo, at its essence, at its core, is about service. It's the archetype of devotion, devotion to the small tasks, the small sacred tasks that we take on that actually sustain life. True Virgo service is about love in action, preparing those meals that nourish you, tidying up the house so that you don't feel stressed when you're waking up in the morning and looking around, creating order out of chaos, refining, really refining a skill that you have that helps bring healing into the world, or it heals or supports other people. That's a Virgo story. And when Virgo is operating at its highest good, at its highest octave, service becomes empowering naturally, right? It makes life feel more whole, full of more gratitude. It nourishes more than just one life. It nourishes while it serves, and all that are served feel nourished by it. But Virgo also has its shadow side, and that's why I think lunations and studying the Virgo traits are really important, because the shadow side of Virgo is slavery and servitude. It's where this it feels like I'm trapped in some way, right? It's when we're over giving and we're not giving out of service or out of love. It's out of guilt, it's out of fear, it's out of some kind of defense or protective net mechanism. It's out of approval. I want to look good in some way. It's when we pour energy into ideas, tasks, moments into our day that are just draining us instead of sustaining us, right? In this form, Virgo takes on the shape of the martyr, the one that is sacrificing the health, the rest, the joy, the nourishment, just to look like they're holding everything together. Service becomes a chain instead of a blessing. Think about this when you're considering where you're doing your unfinished business and planting your new garden at this lunation and over this next 6 months. Think about the parent who's managing every detail of the household, doesn't trust the other parent, and then complains about feeling invisible. Or the employee who continues to cover for the colleague that's not carrying their weight at work just so they get the recognition, or just so they're known as the nice guy or gal at work. Or how about the healer, the astrologer, the nurse who's tending to the wounds of everyone else while ignoring their own body's needs, their own rest? These are examples of when Virgo's shadow side is more present. Now, you know that I have talked so much this year about how we have really been put into a spotlight here in 2025 to get a relationship with receptivity, rest, receiving, play, coming back to a place where it's soft and it's easy. And many, many, many of us have been shown that we struggle with that relationship for receptivity, understanding our worthiness, that I don't need to do more to get more. It's been really difficult for a lot of people to allow a soft, allow a rest, and allow that feeling to forge a new reality, right? So if that's you, if you've been struggling with that, put that in the comment section down below. I can tell you a couple of years ago, this was the story that was coming in, and I just was trash at it, right? But when we're looking at the seeds that we're planting to begin something new here, we have to come back to this place as well, because if we're calling in and we're building these structures to hold new lives for ourselves, right? if we can't receive them, they won't stay. You can have the partner come to you, but you don't actually know how to receive another person, so the partnership's not going to stay. You can call in the money and it's going to be gone just as quickly. We can call in the whatever, but if I don't have a relationship with pleasure and abundance, it won't stay. And some of these concepts, I think, really are shown to us in this particular lunation as well. So, think about that as this 29 degrees, which calls us with some urgency to ask, where am I serving from? Is it in alignment? Am I coming from service? Am I coming from slavery? Am I coming from servitude? Have I slipped into servitude? Have I slipped into an enslaved obligational kind of life or pattern? And it's actually taken me away from understanding how to receive and how can I use this lunation to come out. Now, of course, the South Node is also traveling here at this eclipse. That's how these things go. So it adds just a little bit more depth, a little bit more layer to it, because the South Node presents to us the past. It's a karmic pattern. We've already mastered it. We've done it, but their habits, we're clinging to them. So there is this sense for me, even as we're at this solar eclipse and we have the chance to plant these seeds of intention, that I realize that if we're not ready and we're still clinging to it has to be this way, I don't need more rest, I don't know how to receive, right? These kinds of things. If we're clinging to them, even if they're no longer serving us, it's almost like the universe is dragging us instead of us walking along with it. Now, in Virgo, many of these things come down to I'm over analyzing, I'm clinging to control, I'm equating my worth with being productive, not with my nurturing rest. I'm giving too much, I'm doing the most. Okay. It's a very Virgo kind of energy. So at this eclipse, if these are things that are coming up for you, you're feeling physically, emotionally drained, the South Node can highlight for us, and I think it's the gift, it highlights the exhaustion to say, hey, this has outlived its purpose. This has outlived its purpose. It doesn't fit here anymore. Let's plant these seeds of intention, whatever form it takes, to shine a light on the cracks in the system, because we want the thing to be well built so that it will grow. And the gift of the South Node is release. We can use this in alignment with the energy as like a detox. Let it go. Hand it off. See it for what it is at this particular lunation and let it go. Now, let's talk about how these other aspects are actually, I think, help us achieve those things. So, first of all, we've got this conversation with the opposition with Saturn that's here in Pisces and, of course, retrograde. So, this is a space of responsibility and closure, right? Because opposing the eclipse, it's still Saturn. So it does add a bit of a sobering reality to this lunation, but Saturn's retrograde, so we have already seen something that's going on here. But Saturn being that planet of structure, responsibility, accountability, in Pisces, the lessons were spiritual. They were spiritual for us. They were about the highest octave of Neptune. Where do I receive from? Right? They're spiritual and emotional lessons. So the question that we're being tasked to regard is, where am I neglecting my inner life? Where am I neglecting my rest, my nurturing, my receptivity? Where have I avoided or resisted taking responsibility for my own healing? At this eclipse, Saturn shows up as, I think, a bit of a reckoning. And again, we remember the gift of the South Node. If you see it and you can call it out, you know it's true, hand it off, because we are being asked to face it, right? Where are we taking part in this? And Saturn is also here at the end of its karma in Pisces. So the degree of endings, extinction, closing, it's a full story for us right now of letting things go. It can feel though like emotional heaviness, like fatigue, like we're watching collapses of systems in our own lives and our own beings in the world that we're living in, and there's no place to be propped up anymore. The propping up performance won't work. Now, for some, depending on your chart, this can mean that there are health challenges and they force you to rest if you don't agree to take it on yourself. For others, it may mean that you have, you lose a role that you were in a position of responsibility for quite some time. And it's because the role no longer fits you anymore. Saturn just says, finish the lesson. We're at 29 degrees. Finish the lesson. Close the cycle. Take responsibility for what's yours. Release what cannot come forward. Now, this is not to say I want to point this out that for some of you, the role that you might be losing or giving up, you might be really tired. Have you been caring for a family member for a very long time? And as the eclipse is closing in or in between these eclipses, has that family member transitioned, right? You might have been really tired as you were coming to the end of this, but still we see that this lunation will take that role from you as caregiver, right? But Saturn here is also a tutor, teaching us, helping us, and reminding us that when we face the discomfort, when we face the Saturnian thing, that's where we gain strength. That's where life makes humans make sense. But Saturn in Pisces is asking us to mature in how we hold our spirits, how we practice and receiving and giving compassion, and where we move in faith, how we dance with surrender, right? Boundaries are spiritual. No, I can't take that on right now. I'm at capacity. No, you know how to do that for yourself. Boundaries are spiritual, not selfish when practiced correctly. Now, Neptune in Aries is also quite a visionary, surrendery kind of energy. But I think in this case, it's more about building a vision around instead of an illusion, right? Because this is also opposing that eclipse just here into the Aries energy. But Neptune is a dissolving. Saturn wants to bring the structure and really hold our feet and ourselves to task so that we can grow and come to that next level of maturity. But Neptune here is dissolving boundaries and old ideas. It's amplifying faith, faith in ourselves, faith in a world that can be. But it does blur the clarity quite a bit. But in Aries, Neptune wants to ignite it wants to ignite the dream, right? It wants to ignite the dream and it wants to do it. There's urgency. This is fire. It's whispering to us the new vision. It's like burning into your mind as much as it can every day. It burns another little piece of the vision of clarity into your mind, but it is like trying to see through fog. It's like I burn only this much of the picture and I can't fully see the new beginning, but it is here. But what we can sense, especially if we've been practicing the receiving, practicing the genuine spiritual self, is really bold answering to our intuition, right? That's a really brave new identity. Aries is all about identity. This is my spiritual identity. This is my receiving identity. This is my empowered identity. This is my inspired identity. This is my intuitive genius entity. What does that look like in your life, even if it's unknown? What would it look like in your life as you're finding the places that your Virgo story has its cracks if you said, oh, I actually can't do fill in the blank thing that I've been using as slavery control, and I let someone else who's very capable of doing it? What will it mean for me? What will my identity be if I'm not the one running the show the entire time? What would that mean? What would that look like? What identity is that? And that can be tricky, right? That can be tricky to live in an entirely new way. The other part that I think Neptune and Aries has presented a bit of tricky is that it can be really inspirational. I'm really inspired. I'm seeing the vision come through. I'm really inspired to go this way, but I'm also really confused. I'm really confused. So I want to take action, but the clarity hasn't settled yet. So it can make an illusion feel like it's the truth, and we're taking action before the clarity has settled, right? So at this eclipse, as we see this Neptune opposing this sun moon, there is this bit to say, hold on, maybe we're not seeing the entire picture with our eyes. Maybe we have to wait and sense it through. We have to sense it through. And what is urgent and what the vision and the dream will be, it may not be fully formed yet, but it is on the way. And this is where the discernment of Virgo, which is Virgo's gift, can absolutely be helpful for you. Where do you discern the truth within you? Where is it like, nope, that still feels foggy. I need to wait. Or where is it, this piece feels clear. I can go this way, right? Discernment. And discernment here is also going to be quite practical as well. Okay, let's talk about the easy aspects. I know we're getting into quite a bit looking at how we break this down. But we've also got Uranus, Pluto, and Mars in really supportive positions because the eclipse doesn't stand alone. This is not clean like some of our other lunations have been. But the harmony that we see between Uranus and Taurus, Pluto over in Aquarius, the sextile over here from Mars, which really means that there is something we are in action on. Uranus is bringing in innovation. I can get out of this box. I don't have to live the same way. I'm coming to a new place, right? There's plenty having to do with technology locked in there as well. But focusing on the fact that Uranus is in Taurus, it is asking us to reset our relationship with resources, right? My first resource is my health, my relationship with rest, receptivity, worthiness, and embodiment. Oh, I just love it. I feel like luxury. How does it feel to be in your own body? Does it feel luxurious to be in your space? Does it feel good to be in the skin that you are in? And if not, where Uranus can be helpful is it brings these insights about, oh, I need to care for my body differently. Or that routine worked for me for like 20 years, and that is outdated. That's not how I can and need to care for myself anymore. That's wreaking havoc on my system. Here's a really great example. I used to enjoy those HIIT workouts, right? HIIT, right? High intensity interval training workouts. And when I hit perimenopause, those were spiking my cortisol level like crazy. And I learned my body didn't want to move like that anymore. And it took me months, even though I was suffering, to get it. So think about that in your own life where it's like, no, this has always worked for me, or I've always done this way and it's not working. How I've cared for myself, my resources. Have you always just been able to spend money any way you want? Have you had the experience of not ever really having any money and now you have a different mindset about it and you're experiencing something different? What do you do with that? These changes are amazing. Now, Pluto in Aquarius is bringing the depth and the transformation to it. And sometimes it's quite painful, right? Because it asks us to confront something that's hidden or hidden power dynamics that are in our work, or in our communities, in our systems, in our soul stories. Because Pluto is here stripping away. It's stripping away. It's going, no, that is false. That is false. That is false. That is not working. That all I want is what's going to empower us. And what empowers me is very real, often raw, often painful, right? Because it is the truth. It is the truth of who and what I am, or what I've had going on, or what I've learned, or where my value comes from. So, together, when we look at Uranus and Pluto together with this lunation, I think we have this space where we're saying it's not just about tweaking your habits a bit. This isn't going to a small shift to the left and it's all going to click into place. This is transformation. That whole thing doesn't work anymore. That's not who you are. That's not where your pain points have been. And the change, because it's an eclipse, can be sudden, but it's also so lasting. Now, when I look at this Mars piece, and I really have liked this particular piece, Because I think, again, I have Mars in Libra. I know the kind of courage that comes with this particular placement. And it's the kind of courage that tends to show up in relationships. Virgo's energy often takes on too much. It moves to that space of slavery, servitude. It can go there very, very quickly. But here, Mars in Libra is saying, speak up. Renegotiate the balance here. Ask for what you need. Advocate for fairness in your life, right? This is an aspect that I think hands us access and action to bravery. But it's the kind that says, I have to ask for help and I have to set boundaries and I need to insist in my life, wherever this is happening in your chart, for reciprocity. If Virgo is showing us where we've been enslaved instead of in service by or to duty, Mars in Libra is giving us the tools to reset the scales, to take the action to reset those scales. So, wow, this is a really intense lunation, a good one, I think. But one of the clearest things that I feel like this eclipse is offering is for us to really have a look around at the difference between service, what is real service, and what is that false service, right? Because that false service is going to look like care, or it's going to look good, and it's going to drain us. And it's going to show up in saying yes out of guilt. It's going to say yes out of fear of being rejected. And I talked about several weeks ago, in your relationships, checking in on what's going on in your affection and your intimacy life. Are you just saying yes because it's a chore and it's a duty? What's happening there? Are you of service to this portion of your relationship, right? Not letting other people do for themselves what they can do for themselves. It's avoiding the smaller details so that we can feel like we're really, really in control of situations, sacrificing our health of ourselves so that other people can be living their best lives to our detriment, right? False service wears down the mask, right? It's not virtuous, it's just servitude. So I think that this eclipse is giving us an opportunity to do a really nice reset. And some of the ways that we get to reset this is, whatever you do at this lunation, make it ritual. Allow this to be ritual for you. Write down, do you have a pattern of false service or servitude coming up at this particular time and you're ready for it to end? You're ready for it to look different. Write it down, bury it, burn it, have ceremony, connect with the universe. It's ever present. You're seated in the hands of the universe, always guided. Journal. Reset a routine that you've got going in your life. I would love for every single one of you to be in the Venus Reset program. We are having such beautiful success over there, especially around the stories of receiving. How do I receive? How do I rest so that I even have an attempt at leaving enslavement in my life, right? So there are a lot of tools that we have at our fingertips at this particular lunation. Now, for those of you who've been alive long enough as well, there is an opportunity to look back and see where you've been at this lunation or this axis before in your story. So first of all, go back to 2006. What was going back? Like, think back into those years. What was ending? What systems were crumbling in your life? What things were happening around health or service? Or were you stepping into something at that time that you're stepping out of now? Even if you were young, the themes are going to echo somewhere through your family story at that time. And you'll be able to continue to follow that and track that through your long-term cycles. And for those of you who are the 80s babies, You can go back to 1987 and see what was going on then. And it's neat because if you were alive then enough to track your pattern through 1987, you can follow it through to 2006 and now to 2025. And you're going to have some version of the same story going on at that particular time. So check it out. Let me know what was happening for you in the comment section down below. All right, beautiful friends, this has been a little bit longer video. Hopefully you were able to put it on while you were cleaning, having a coffee, just so we could spend a little minute together, talk about this absolutely cool threshold that we are approaching right now, but it is asking us to release what drains us, plant our seeds of intention for something that is going to nourish service into our lives. That Saturn in Pisces demanding some responsibility for us to do it and to allow closure, to take responsibility for that. Neptune in Aries bringing a willingness to have faith in a new life, in a new vision, discernment in the Virgo vibration, Mars giving us courage to ask for what we need. So I think that the invitation is very clear at this eclipse. Service is sacred, and servitude drains us and is slavery. So, all right, my beautiful friends, I love you a ton. Check out these videos that are at the end, and I will see you in our next video. Bye, everyone.